Rayna Stark crouched low, her breath steady in the cold, stale air of the ruined building. The city below was a landscape of smoke and ash, the remnants of once thriving structures now reduced to rubble. A guttural sound from far away, the roar of alien engines, reminded her that the Syndicate was close, their heavy footsteps pounding closer with each passing second. She adjusted her grip on the sniper rifle, her eyes narrowed, focused on the distant horizon. She'd been waiting for this. For years, humanity had fought an uphill battle against the Syndicate, a merciless empire that had torn through the galaxy, leaving destruction in its wake. Now they were on Earth, and Rayna was ready. Her mind didn't race with fear, it was sharp, calculating, prepared. The city was alive with the sounds of battle, but she had a job to do. Her job was to end this, now. The viewfinder of her rifle came alive in her hands, displaying a flickering holographic grid. Her target, one of the Syndicate's forward commanders, moving methodically through the urban wreckage. Rayna's finger hovered over the trigger. The wind was light, but the terrain was uneven. She recalibrated the scope, her mind calculating the necessary adjustments. She couldn't afford a single mistake. A faint crackling came through the comms in her earpiece, breaking the silence. "Commander Stark," the voice of Sergeant Blake came through. "We've got incoming reinforcements, heading right for your position." Rayna didn't flinch. "Do they have eyes on me?" "They're looking, Commander. But they don't know where you are yet. Your shot could draw them in." She didn't need Blake's advice. She'd already considered the risks. She'd always considered the risks. "Keep them distracted," she said. "And keep moving the perimeter. I'll take care of the rest." Blake's voice was tight but respectful. "Understood, Commander. Don't take too long." Rayna adjusted her focus. The commander was still moving, stepping lightly between the ruins, unaware that his life was hanging by a thread. With the delicate tension of a practiced sniper, Rayna squeezed the trigger. The shot was perfect, a clean line through the air, slicing past debris before finding its mark. The commander's body jerked back violently, then crumpled to the ground, his armor useless against the high-powered round. "Target neutralized," Rayna whispered to herself, her eyes still locked on the corpse below, but her mind already processing the next move. The message was clear: we fight back. She shifted her position quickly, pulling back from her vantage point. The weight of the rifle was familiar in her arms, but she didn't have time to savor the shot. The wind picked up as she moved, carrying with it the sounds of distant gunfire. The Syndicate wasn't taking her lightly. They were coming for her. Rayna's boots hit the cold concrete floor, her mind calculating the route to her next position. She darted between buildings, the terrain broken, unstable, but familiar. Earth was in ruins, but it was still home, its shattered remnants a reminder that it hadn't gone down without a fight. Humanity hadn't gone down without a fight. Her comms crackled again. "Commander Stark." Blake's voice came through again, but this time it was more urgent. "The Syndicate's legions are being deployed. They're sending the best. We can't hold them off for long." Rayna paused, the mention of the legends sending a wave of recognition through her. The Syndicate's elite warriors, the ones who made Earth's resistance look like an afterthought. She'd heard of them, seen the aftermath. The legends weren't just soldiers. They were nightmares. But nightmares had been defeated before. She wasn't afraid. She was prepared. "I'm not backing down, Blake," she replied, her voice low and unyielding. "Tell the team to hold tight. I'll draw them out." The Syndicate's best was coming. But Rayna had her own plans. She had a weapon they couldn't anticipate: humanity's raw resilience. If they wanted Earth, they were going to have to fight for it. Her eyes flicked over the horizon once more, scanning the battlefield. Movement. There, in the distance, 3 figures emerged from the shadows, dark, armored shapes moving with terrifying purpose. Her stomach tightened, the familiar rush of adrenaline filling her veins. The legends were here. Rayna's pulse quickened, but her breath remained steady. She had only one shot at this. No room for error. She moved swiftly, setting up another sniper position atop a nearby tower. The legends were closing in, but they hadn't noticed her yet. They were still too far away. She had time. The tower's roof was partially collapsed, debris scattered across the surface, but it provided the perfect vantage point. She knelt behind the jagged edge, reassembling her rifle with expert precision, already calculating her next move. Her focus sharpened, every thought honed on the legends below. Her scope locked onto the first legend, a towering figure with a deadly grace, a weapon built for destruction. This was no ordinary soldier. This was the kind of opponent who could break the will of an entire army. Rayna's breath was steady as she centered the crosshairs on the enemy's head. The shot needed to be quick, clean. One mistake could cost her everything. She squeezed the trigger. But the shot missed. Barely. The legend shifted at the last moment, just enough to avoid the fatal blow. The air around her rang with the sharpness of her failure. She quickly adjusted, setting up for another shot. But this time, the legend wasn't moving. It had stopped. He knew she was here. "You're not as clever as you think, human." The voice came through her comms. It was smooth, almost mocking. The voice of the legend leader, cold and confident. Rayna's chest tightened. She wasn't going to let this end here. She wasn't going to lose. She adjusted her aim again. "No," she muttered under her breath. "This is my fight." Suddenly, the world exploded around her. The legends had figured out her position, and now they were closing in. Their weapons fired, sending debris scattering. Rayna dove behind cover, narrowly avoiding the blast. Her hands shook, but her mind stayed clear. The legends were here, but Rayna was ready. They had underestimated her once. They wouldn't make that mistake again. The countdown had begun. Cliffhanger ending asterisk. The Syndicate leader's laughter echoed in her comms, a cruel sound that sent a chill down Rayna's spine. Asterisk. "You've already lost, human. You just don't know it yet." Asterisk. Rayna gritted her teeth and steadied her rifle. The legends were close. The real battle was only beginning. Rayna's pulse was still racing from her earlier shot, the weight of the moment settling in as she adjusted her position in the ruined skyscraper. The faint hum of distant explosions echoed in the distance, a reminder that the Syndicate was coming. It wasn't enough to kill a few scouts. Rayna knew the real danger was still looming. They'd sent the legends to Earth. These weren't just regular soldiers. These were warriors bred for the sole purpose of eradicating entire species. Her species. She needed to draw them out. But it wasn't enough to just fight back. She had to make them understand. Humanity wasn't going to die without making a mark. Her hand moved to the comms, her voice steady despite the blood pumping in her veins. "Blake, report." The crackle of static filled the air before the sergeant's voice came through, tense but controlled. "We've got movement, Commander. 2 Syndicate squads closing in. They're moving fast, but we've got a small window. If we can hold them off for another 15 minutes, we'll have a better shot at regrouping. But we can't guarantee we'll have the position." Rayna cursed under her breath. 15 minutes. Copy that." She glanced at the scorched horizon. The glowing remnants of the city burned beneath a dark sky. Earth had been shattered, yet it was still standing. And as long as she was breathing, she'd make sure it stayed that way. There was no time to waste. She was about to face the Syndicate's greatest challenge, asterisk the best of the best star. Her next move had to be calculated, precise. She wasn't just going to hold the line, she was going to make them fear Earth. Rayna stood from her position, slowly sliding the sniper rifle from her back and checking the ammo, double-tapping it against her palm. Her mind raced, but her hands were steady. She knew what had to be done. The Syndicate wasn't expecting the kind of guerrilla tactics humanity had perfected in the face of extinction. Rayna wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of an easy fight. She leaned over the edge of the building, her sharp eyes locking onto the advancing enemy formations. The first wave of Syndicate soldiers emerged, their heavy, menacing figures slowly cutting through the cityscape, completely unaware of Rayna's presence. She allowed herself a moment to savor the thrill. The shot would come soon. Just as her finger found the trigger, An unexpected voice cut through her thoughts. Commander, we've got a problem. The elite scouts are here. The Syndicate isn't just sending pawns. They've sent the legends. Blake's words hit like a punch to the gut. The legends. The Syndicate's deadliest killers, with no mercy, no hesitation. The kind of warriors who didn't just kill, they hunted. She felt the cold realization settle in. This was it. If she couldn't stop them, humanity's hope would be gone. Where are they? Rayna asked, voice steady despite the surge of adrenaline flooding her system. North Sector, Blake replied. They've already taken out half of our recon squad. We're outgunned, Commander. We need backup or we're dead. Rayna's grip tightened on the rifle. Backup wasn't coming. Not in time. Blake, listen to me, Rayna said, her voice cutting through the static. We don't need backup. We need to outsmart them. Get your team to fall back to the northern perimeter. I'm going to draw them out. Are you crazy? Blake's voice cracked through the comms. The legends. I know who they are, Sergeant. And I know exactly how to deal with them. Rayna's tone was flat, final. She wasn't asking for permission. Before Blake could protest, Rayna was already moving. Her boots carried her across the rooftop in swift, silent steps. She knew the Syndicate's tactics too well. Their lead team wasn't just trained to kill, they were trained to anticipate, to outmaneuver. They'd learned every trick in the book. But they hadn't learned Earth's tricks. Rayna's tricks. And that was her edge. She set up her position just on the other side of a dilapidated building, taking cover behind a twisted pillar of concrete. From here, she had the perfect vantage point. The Syndicate's advance was slow but methodical. They hadn't made a move to engage yet. She needed to provoke them. Rayna flipped the switch on her rifle's targeting system, adjusting for the wind, the distance, and the slight incline of the ground. She took a deep breath, steadying herself, and squeezed the trigger. The first shot rang out, a clean, precise strike that tore through the armor of the nearest Syndicate soldier. The creature crumpled without a sound, collapsing to the ground. The remaining soldiers spun around, their weapons raised, searching for the source of the shot. But Rayna was already gone, moving from cover to cover with the precision of a ghost. She knew she couldn't stay in one place long enough for them to adapt. She dropped down, taking cover behind the jagged remains of a building. The legends would know the direction of the shot, but they wouldn't know where she was now. She fired again, this time at a sniper positioned on a distant rooftop. The shot hit its mark with pinpoint accuracy, and the enemy sniper fell, lifeless, before it could even react. The Syndicate forces started to split up, but Rayna knew they wouldn't be fooled for long. They'd seen too many of their comrades drop in a matter of seconds. Their elite training would kick in now. She needed them to stay divided, stay uncertain. Blake, I've got them on the run. Keep pushing them back, she instructed. I'll deal with the rest. I'm not leaving you alone out there, Commander, Blake shot back. I'm not asking you to, she said, cutting him off. This is our fight. Trust me. Rayna moved again, this time even closer to the heart of the Syndicate's forces. They were starting to close in on her position, and that's exactly what she wanted. As the legends advanced, Rayna's eyes scanned the horizon for the last, most dangerous target, their leader. The one who controlled the others. He appeared, his tall, armored form cutting through the snow like a vengeful god. His helmet was adorned with markings that suggested both power and ruthlessness. Rayna's breath caught in her chest. He was here. She took aim. The shot needed to be perfect. The leader moved slowly, deliberately, his every step filled with purpose. Rayna's pulse quickened. This was it. Her moment. Her finger tightened on the trigger, and then, the world seemed to slow down. Her breath was shallow, her vision focused only on the leader's chest. Time stretched, and then, the shot rang out. The leader's chest plate cracked, but he didn't fall. He didn't even flinch. Rayna cursed under her breath, but she didn't give up. The first shot had been a warning. Now, she would make them understand. The Syndicate leader turned toward her, his eyes cold with death. He raised his weapon, and in that moment, Rayna knew she was in for the fight of her life. Cliffhanger ending asterisk. The Syndicate leader's weapon hummed to life, the energy building in a sickening hum. Rayna's breath was steady, but the battlefield around her was closing in. The final showdown was coming. And the future of humanity hung in the balance. Rayna Stark's pulse hammered in her ears as the Syndicate leader's weapon powered up with an ominous hum. She didn't flinch, didn't take her eyes off her target. She was a sniper, trained to focus, trained to kill. But she'd never faced an enemy like this before. The Syndicate's legends were more than just soldiers. They were living weapons, their entire being honed for one purpose: to hunt. Rayna could feel the weight of her rifle in her hands, but the weight of the moment was heavier. She had no backup. No reinforcements coming. Just her and the Syndicate's best. The entire battle had led to this single confrontation that would decide the fate of humanity. The Syndicate leader raised his weapon. A long, sleek gun, made for precision, but Rayna knew it could deliver death in an instant. She darted behind the crumbled remnants of a building, her boots leaving barely a trace in the snow. Her heart beat in rhythm with her breath as she moved, every sense heightened. The leader was focused on her last shot, but she was already planning her next move. "Blake," Rayna said, her voice steady through the calms. "Where's the team?" "On the move, Commander. But they're not going to reach you in time." Blake's voice was strained, filled with the weight of his decision. "You're on your own out there." She gripped her rifle tighter. She'd known this was coming, but it didn't make it easier. Humanity had been fighting for years, scraping by, using every last ounce of ingenuity and strength they had left. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. "Then it's just me and them," she muttered. "Keep the perimeter secure. We can't afford to lose any more ground." Rayna peered over the top of the ruins, her eyes locking on the Syndicate leader. He hadn't moved, he was waiting, calculating. Waiting for her to make the first move. But that's the problem with hunters. They never see the trap until it's too late. She ducked back down, sliding into the shadows, and began making her way to the leader's flank. She knew his type. He wouldn't wait long. He'd come for her. And when he did, she would be ready. The cold air bit at her face as she moved swiftly, crouching low to the ground, her every step calculated. The broken structures around her were a perfect cover, the wreckage of humanity's past now a weapon in her hands. The moment came. The leader moved. He was faster than any human, his long strides eating up the distance between them with predatory speed. Rayna's heart raced, but her hands remained steady. She didn't hesitate. She fired. The shot rang out, but the Syndicate leader was already moving, his body shifting with terrifying precision. He dodged the blast, his movements faster than Rayna could track. He fired back, but Rayna was already gone, moving to a new position, using the rubble to keep herself out of sight. "Didn't think you'd be so quick," she muttered, the adrenaline now pushing her beyond what her body had thought possible. The leader snarled, his voice amplified through his helmet, a deep, guttural sound. "You think your little tricks will save you? I've hunted entire species, human. You're nothing more than a blip in the galaxy." Rayna gritted her teeth. "You underestimate us." She shot back, adjusting her position and firing another round. This time, the shot landed, but it was only a glancing blow. The Syndicate leader staggered, but his armor held. He raised his weapon, and the energy crackled in the air, a deadly force ready to wipe her out. Rayna's eyes narrowed, and she knew this was her last chance. She took a deep breath, letting the cool air fill her lungs, steadying her nerves. It wasn't just her life on the line anymore. Humanity's future depended on this fight. She needed to end it. Now. "Rayna!" Blake's voice came again, this time urgent. "We've got a problem. More Syndicate forces are moving in. If you don't take him out now—" "I know," she interrupted. Her voice was calm but filled with resolve. "I know." The leader advanced again, his weapon charging up with a deadly hum. Rayna knew she couldn't keep evading forever. She had to get close enough to land the fatal shot. She closed the distance, each step a calculated risk. The moment the leader's attention shifted toward her position, Rayna moved. She sprinted low, using the last of her cover to close the gap. The leader didn't see her coming. His arrogance was his downfall. Rayna leapt from behind the crumbling wall, rifle in hand. She aimed with precision, her crosshairs dead center on the leader's chest. She pulled the trigger, the shot echoing across the battlefield. The impact was devastating. The leader staggered back, his armor crumpling under the force of the shot. But he wasn't done yet. His eyes burned with rage as he drew a knife, a jagged blade meant for close combat. Rayna didn't flinch. She didn't retreat. She stood her ground, ready for what came next. The leader charged, his weapon aimed at her chest. At the last possible moment, Rayna ducked low, grabbing the leader's wrist and twisting it violently. The knife slipped from his hand, and she spun around, using his own momentum against him. With one final strike, Rayna drove a small, high-tech blade into the leader's side, right where his armor was weakest. The leader's eyes widened in shock, but there was no time for him to react. He crumpled, falling to the ground with a heavy thud, his body limp. Rayna stood over him, her breath heavy, her heart still racing. She didn't feel victory. Not yet. But she knew she'd done the impossible. She'd killed the Syndicate's deadliest hunter. The sound of Blake's voice came again, quieter now, relieved. "You did it, Commander. You took him down." "But—" Rayna didn't listen to the rest. She'd been right about the Syndicate's arrogance. They thought they could destroy humanity. They thought they could erase the spark of resistance. But they hadn't counted on her. They hadn't counted on Earth's deadliest sniper. She turned, knowing this victory was only a momentary reprieve. The war was far from over. And if the Syndicate thought this was their last challenge, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. Cliffhanger ending asterisk. Behind her, the sound of reinforcements echoed through the rubble. More Syndicate forces still out there. Rayna's heart pounded as she shifted her rifle into position. The real war was just beginning. The explosion rocked the air, sending a shockwave through the broken city, the force of it reverberating under Rayna's feet. The legends had found her. She had known they would. They had tracked her every move, anticipated every strategy. And yet here she stood, still breathing, still fighting, despite the odds. Rayna crouched behind the fractured remains of a collapsed building, her heartbeat steady despite the chaos around her. She could hear the Syndicate forces approaching. The sound of their boots was unmistakable, heavy, methodical, deliberate. The legends were closing in. But she wasn't done yet. No, Rayna wasn't just going to fight to survive, she was going to make them regret ever underestimating humanity. "Commander, we're holding the perimeter as best we can, but they're pushing in fast." Blake's voice crackled through her earpiece, sharp with concern. "You need to get out of there. We're not going to last much longer." Rayna's lips curled into a grim smile. "You're not going anywhere, Blake. Not without me." The legends had come for her, and now she would make them earn every inch they took. Humanity was outgunned, outmatched, and almost out of time, but it was never about the odds. It was about what you did when you had nothing left to lose. She peered around the corner, scanning the street below. There, moving like shadows between the rubble, were the legends, their towering forms unmistakable. Each step they took was a promise of death. But Rayna wasn't afraid. She had one chance left to take them down, and she was going to make it count. The first legend came into view, tall, armored, its helmet reflecting the burning light of the distant fires. Rayna's scope locked onto the target. But before she could take the shot, the sound of a burst of fire came from another direction, followed by a guttural scream. The legend jerked back, its body flailing in the air before it crumpled to the ground. Rayna's breath caught in her throat, her heart pounding as she adjusted her position, her eyes still locked on the enemy's ranks. Who had made that shot? Then the voice came. It wasn't Blake, but it was familiar. "Looks like the Syndicate's legends need a little more practice," a voice drawled, dripping with sarcasm. Rayna's pulse surged. She knew that voice. It was Lance, a soldier she thought had fallen in the first wave of the invasion. A legend in his own right, Lance was an expert marksman, a sniper who had disappeared months ago. How the hell had he survived? Lance? She whispered, disbelief creeping into her voice. How the hell are you? Long story, Lance cut in, his voice a mix of humor and weariness. But we don't have time for it. We've got work to do. Before Rayna could respond, another legend fell. And another. Lance's shots were devastating, each one accurate, swift, and fatal. The Syndicate hadn't anticipated a second sniper. Rayna had made her first move, but Lance was helping her push the legends back, giving her the opening she needed. She didn't waste it. With a swift motion, Rayna pulled out a grenade from her belt, pulling the pin and lobbing it toward the advancing enemy. It landed right at the feet of a legend, the explosion deafening. The shockwaves sent debris flying, and Rayna ducked low, quickly moving to the next vantage point. They had to move fast. The Syndicate's forces were too well organized, too brutal to remain vulnerable for long. Time to finish this, Rayna muttered under her breath. Lance's voice echoed in her ear, steady but tense. On your 6, Commander. Let's take them down together. Rayna gave a sharp nod. She didn't need to ask for more. Lance was already covering her back. The legends were formidable, but they weren't invincible. They had trained their entire lives to fight, but they hadn't trained for this. For the desperation of a species who had nothing left to lose but their last breath. Rayna squeezed the trigger again, picking off another target. One down. Another one quickly followed. But the legends weren't going to just roll over. They were adapting quickly, positioning themselves with military precision, using the city's remains for cover. The one advantage they had, Rayna's ability to outthink them, was slipping away. She had to move fast. The enemy was closing in, their numbers overwhelming. The perimeter was crumbling. Blake's voice crackled again. Rayna, I've got eyes on you, but you're getting surrounded. We can't. Rayna didn't wait for Blake to finish. Shut it down, Blake. I'm not leaving. With that, she took a deep breath and dove into the chaos. She was fast, a blur of motion through the broken landscape, her body weaving through the debris as she closed in on the remaining legends. The leader of the legends emerged from the shadows, towering over Rayna like a dark storm. His armor was thick, almost impenetrable, and his weapon gleamed with an unnatural energy. This was it, the final confrontation. Rayna's pulse quickened, but she didn't hesitate. The leader raised his weapon, energy crackling from the barrel. A flash of light filled the air, and Rayna ducked, narrowly avoiding the blast. She fired back, aiming for his exposed flank. The shot rang out, but it didn't land. His armor absorbed the impact, and he roared, turning toward her with terrifying speed. Asterisk, you're a fool, asterisk, the leader hissed. His voice was a deep growl, distorted through the helmet. Asterisk, humanity will fall. There is no future for you, asterisk. Rayna's eyes narrowed. She wasn't just fighting for survival now. This was personal. This wasn't just about winning, it was about proving that the Syndicate had no right to decide humanity's fate. You think you've won? Rayna shouted, her rifle still aimed at the legend. Not today, alien. She moved again, faster than she'd ever moved before, closing the gap between them. Her shot was clean. And this time, it hit. Right where the armor was weakest. The legend staggered, its energy weapon falling from its hand. But as the legend crumpled to the ground, the reality of the situation hit Rayna. The legends were only part of the Syndicate's forces. This fight wasn't over. Not yet. She turned to Lance, her eyes meeting his for the first time since the chaos began. This isn't finished. We've got to move. Lance gave a sharp nod. I'll cover you, Commander. Let's finish what we started. Rayna stood tall, her rifle heavy in her hands. This was just the beginning. The war had taken a brutal turn, but humanity wasn't out yet. Not by a long shot. Cliffhanger ending asterisk. As Rayna and Lance moved toward the next battleground, A new wave of Syndicate reinforcements dropped from the sky. This time, it wasn't legends. It was something far worse. Rayna's heart sank as the unmistakable hum of advanced weaponry filled the air. The real war was about to begin.